Welcome to Desert Island Comics, where some of the greatest comic makers of our age choose 5 comics or graphic novels that they will take to a desert island, as well as a packet of crisps and a biscuit. Now, I am deeply honored to say that with us today is really one of the most highly respected artists of the last, I don't want to age him, but maybe of the last 20, even 30 years. I think he's amazing. His has been the Pentel fountain pen behind Captain America, The Punisher, Daredevil, Gotham Central, loads and loads of your favorite superhero stories from both sides of the divide. And perhaps most famously, the series he created with Greg Rucka, Lazarus. In fact, if you haven't read it, could you please press pause now, go and find the first collected edition and read it immediately. It's like Succession meets The $6 Million Woman in a post-apocalyptic dystopia. And that artist is, of course, Michael Lark. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, in the first, I have to tell you this, in the first ever Desert Island Comics, our guest was Charlie Adlard, the artist behind The Walking Dead. He actually chose Lazarus as one of the comics that he would take to a desert island. And so I was just checking back on the video of what he said. And he actually said,
I think I'd seriously recommend it out of all the 5 books I've recommended, actually.
Wow, that's quite a compliment.
It is quite a compliment. Why do you think it's kind of touched a nerve in readers like that?
If I knew the answer to things like that, I would do it intentionally and make a whole lot of money. So I really don't know. I think that the fact that Greg and I have poured our hearts and souls into this project has been a big reason why the people who like it like it. As far as the writing goes, Greg is definitely, I think, tapped into some of the fears and frustrations that a lot of us have over the last, especially over the last 5 or 6 years with the governments of the United States and England. Mm-hmm. But, even longer than that, because really this book was conceived long before Trump came along. I mean, it was conceived before Trump said he was going to run for president.
Right.
I think that whatever the fuck it is that he's unleashed in our country, at least, is very reminiscent. It definitely stinks like the things stink in Lazarus do.
Yeah. But listen, we could go on about that, but really what we're here to find out about is what's the first book you're going to take to your desert island?
I said I would take Terry and the Pirates collection by Milton Caniff. Okay,
now
I suspect that there's probably not many people in the United States, even comic fans, who would know what I was talking about when I said Terry and the Pirates, which is part of the thing is I don't read comics. I don't read comic books. I've never been a big comic book guy. I didn't grow up reading comics like most comics creators did. Superhero comics, and especially the superhero comics that were around when I was growing up, just didn't appeal to me as an artist. And I think that even as a kid, I was always drawing. So there was always kind of that artist eye looking at it. And I'm not saying I was a great artist when I was a kid. I'm just saying I was looking at the art. Mid-century United States adventure comics, and there were some in the UK as well, like Modesty Blaze and some other ones, that they had a different approach than what the comic books had. They were meant to be seen in black and white. They were meant to be in bite-sized chunks. You could do in 4 panels in one daily strip 4 different scenes. And
right. So maybe we should just explain, sorry, when you're talking about Terry and the Pirates, then you're talking about it in its comic strip, its newspaper comic strip.
Yeah. So that's why I chose Terry. I'm actually just a big Milt Caniff fan. I think that he along with Noel Sickles, kind of revolutionized everything in terms of the approach to black and white, in terms to how bold the artwork was. I mean, there were these big black areas that you hadn't seen before. So, you know, that's a big thing. Anything Kniff, I eat it up. The way the brush strokes went down, the way he approached the art was just so new and different to anything that had happened before. I feel like everything that's come afterwards that's influenced me has been directly influenced by that.
I mean, I did feel when I hadn't read any Terry and the Pirates myself before. When I was looking at some of it before this interview, the first thing it really struck me as feeling like was sort of 1940s film noir, sort of, you know, American hard-boiled detective movies.
I think the film noir influenced Kniff and Sickles probably, but I'm not an expert on that. I don't know. I can't speak for them, but I do know, I think a bigger part of it than the film noir was the fact that they had to communicate in black and white in a very, very quickly. And we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but if you look back at like Scorchy Smith, when Sickles took over Scorchy Smith from the original creator was just doing a lot of line art and cross hatching. There were none of those big black areas.
Right.
But Sickles and Kniff together, they were studio mates, recognized the power and the graphic power of those heavy black areas and the black and the white interacting together.
Clearly, that is a massive influence on your style. Yes. I mean, I don't think there is an artist today who uses black as powerfully as you do.
Well, I don't know that I'd go that far. I mean, Mike Mignola, you know, Frank Miller.
Yeah, but I'm not interviewing them today.
There's a lot of people that come from the same influences that I think use those heavy blacks.
Yeah.
And I think Mike Mignola and Frank Miller in Sin City have taken it to an extreme where everything is just a matter of black and white shapes. I love that.
Okay. All right. So, well, you've got Terry and the Pirates. In fact, while we're on the subject, and you mentioned Scorchy Smith there, why don't we go straight on and put these two kind of together? So what's your second choice?
Yes, Scorchy Smith by Noel Sickles, for all the same reasons.
What is the difference between Terry and the Pirates and Scorchy Smith?
Oh, artistically, to me, there's worlds of difference. Again, they were influencing each other, but I love flipping through my Scorchy Smith collection and seeing Sickles. Sometimes he would decide, like, it seemed like in the middle of the strip, it was like, yeah, I don't feel like doing this anymore. I'm not going to do it. Like, you know, he was cross-hatching for a while. And then it's like one day, I don't know if he just, like, his cross-hatching pen screwed up or what. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to do cross-hatching anymore. Just almost in the middle of the strip. And he just stopped doing it. Because I coming out at the same time. And again, they were sharing a studio. So a lot of times they were inking each other's backgrounds. They were helping each other out, finishing strips. And so, yes, there are things that are very similar. I find Sickles' style to be a little more simple, a little more, he eliminates the superfluous a bit more than Kniff does.
Why don't you just tell us, for the benefit of those who don't know, what is Scorchy Smith? What is this strip all about?
It's just an adventure strip. I mean, it's like, you know, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, or, you know, I mean, essentially Raiders of the Lost Ark was very influenced by these kind of old adventure strips, probably more Terry and the Pirates than Scorchy. But I mean, Scorchy's just a bunch of adventure stories about a guy who's a pilot.
So I found it in a comic from the 50s called Famous Funnies, and which is a collection of loads of different strips. And what they'd done was put in 2 pages of Scorchy Smith into each comic. But it's quite obvious when you're reading them, it doesn't work as a page with 4 rows in it, because of the first picture on each row has this slight feeling of recapping what happened in the last picture of the previous row.
Yeah, there's kind of a formula. You do recap, And then you have 1 or 2 panels of furthering the action, and then a cliffhanger. And
Yeah.
every day it's the same thing. Which
Incredible
I find
discipline.
Yeah, I read somewhere that he gave himself 45 minutes a day, 15 minutes to pencil, 15 minutes to ink, and 15 minutes to letter, which I find insane. I can't even imagine how he managed that. And then to draw things with the accuracy that he did.
Maybe that's one of the reasons for those big areas of black.
Oh yeah, definitely. When in doubt, black it out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'll remember that one. Thank you.
Well, yeah. Well, then you're halfway to being a comic artist if you can remember that.
Yeah. All I have to do now is have some actual artistic skill, which would.
That's things can be learned.
Okay. Is there one of your own works that you're kind of particularly fond of that maybe has like a sort of a secret place in your heart?
Yeah, Gotham Central as a whole, I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of the work we did on that. At the end, the story arc Half a Life, which was the one where Renee Montoya was outed as a lesbian by Two-Face, I'm extremely proud of that piece of work. Greg just gave me a story that really spoke to me on that, and I think that once again, the reason it was successful was because we were passionate about it. Greg and I were very, very passionate about comics needing representation of people that were more than just white dudes. Mm-hmm. Frankly, I'm sick to death of white dude stories. We don't need any more. Especially white dude stories about superheroes. What can be told that hasn't been told before? We don't need any more of those. And even more so was the reaction of the fans. I didn't realize that just like there were some characters in the story who just absolutely would not accept that she was queer, there were, so many fans who were just furious with us for making Montoya gay, making Montoya lesbian. And it was just like, why are you so pissed about this? Why are you so invested? What do you have against it? And, to me, I think that maybe they had to ask themselves some tough questions too, about their own level of acceptance and about who they were willing to go to bat for. Are you going to go to bat for the people who are intolerant of that kind of thing, or are you going to go to bat for tolerance? Mm-hmm. I wish that it had been queer women being able to tell that story instead of 2 straight white dudes. But we were doing what we could, and maybe it requires more straight white dudes being willing to kick down that door and then hold it open mm-hmm. to get more representation into the creators of comics. I think the Black Panther movie was a big eye opener in terms of how many kids suddenly saw themselves in these Marvel movies that they hadn't seen before. And how important that is. I think it's vital.
I could not agree with you more, and it's something that, I'm not beating the drum for our festival, but it's something we are very dedicated to and invested in.
And, well, that's one of the reasons I feel dedicated to the Lakes Festival. It's there were so many women creators and women involved in the convention, and gay creators being celebrated with the year that I was there. And it was so refreshing and so different from the sausage fest that is the US Comics Convention Festival.
Well, that is absolutely fascinating, but we have to move on. So what's the third one going to be?
Rip Kirby by Alex Raymond, who created Flash Gordon and then went on later to do something completely different with Rip Kirby. Rip Kirby was the first kind of urbane detective in comics, and he smoked his pipe and had his elbow patches, but he could also drive race cars and play jazz piano and all this kind of stuff like that.
And this is once again a newspaper strip, isn't it?
Again, a newspaper comic strip.
Michael, you're obsessed. You're obsessed with newspaper comic strips of Americana from the 1940s and 50s.
I am a bit. I have to admit. There's to me, the artwork is much more sophisticated than in American comic books.
And who was Alex Raymond?
He was another big one that was a big superstar. He created Flash Gordon.
You said he created Flash Gordon, but wasn't Flash Gordon more like the sort of thing that you were just criticizing, like sort of comic book?
I don't think so. I think that it was a more old-fashioned artistic style because there was a lot of hatching, a lot of line work. He was also influenced by American fashion illustration of the day.
That is very clear, isn't it? Quite a lot of his illustrations, they almost look sometimes like sort of models from a clothing catalog.
And they may have been, for all I know. I mean, he just, he loved filling the background up or the foreground sometimes with fashionable women in fashionable clothes. But I really like, there's an energy, there's a vitality to it. The art to me just kind of jumps off the page at you. You can almost feel the artist putting down those marks on the page as they go down. So I kind of liken it to jazz music, where there's a framework of chords and melody, but then when it comes time to solo, the artist is out there on his own, making it up as he goes along. And there's a certain excitement to that. I feel like Rip Kirby by Alex Raymond was one of those strips where that was the kind of art to me, where the brushwork is just so full of vitality and excitement.
Okay, wonderful. Now your next choice, you've not gone for one particular strip or anything. What have you gone for?
I've gone for an artist here, Alex Toth. Alex Toth took all the things that these guys were doing in comic strips, and he was also very influenced by these three guys I've already mentioned. He took what they were doing and did it in comic books. He was just so distinctive and so different and so revolutionary.
So what is it in his art that speaks to you like that?
So the first time somebody turned me on to Alex Toth artwork, it was everything that I kind of liked, which seemed like all this stuff that was all over the map. As soon as somebody said, well, here's Alex Toth, I was like, he's taken all of it and kind of run it through a funnel, and it's come out the other end, this pure thing that I was like, yes, he likes the same stuff I like. Yeah.
Can you point us towards one really good example?
Yeah, my favorite two Alex Toth comics, there's one called The Crushed Gardenia. It's a crime story from the 50s that is so different from anything else you'll ever see in comics in terms of storytelling and in terms of his choice of what he drew in each individual panel. Like, there's one panel where there's stuff happening, but the only thing that's drawn in the panel is a pair of feet. And somehow it works. It's like where I would have drawn the faces of the characters talking, he draws the feet of one of the characters. It's so unusual. And the whole story is full of things like that. Crushed Gardenia. You can find it online easily. And another one is called White Devil, Yellow Devil. That's a Korean War story that is so unusual because it's told from the point of view of a Korean soldier, who shoots a white soldier, a white devil, in the first page of the book. And then as the story goes on, he feels guilt about leaving that guy's body out there, and he decides he has to go back and bury this guy's body. So it's a really unusual war story. But the art in it is it's just a tour de force of jungles at nighttime and things like that. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And again, unusual storytelling choices.
Okay, so all right, you've already got your thought. By the way, when I was looking up Alex Toth, I came across a book called Genius Isolated: The Life and Art of Alex Toth. That seemed to have quite a lot in it.
Yeah, I'd have to look. It's part of that's part of a trilogy. There's Genius Isolated, Genius Illustrated, and I forget I think Genius Animated maybe. Okay. That are all big, fat hardback volumes. I'd have to look at which one is the era that I like most.
Well, why don't we give you the trilogy to take to Desert Island?
I'm gonna have to take box sets of these. So I hope that counts.
Yeah. So all of your choices so far are basically they're sort of these great pioneer mid-20th century American storytelling.
Yeah.
So then for your fifth choice, it's like you're turning everything on its head. Go on, tell us about it.
See, not to me. To me, it goes with them. I chose Cages by Dave McKean, which is one of my favorite graphic novels of all time, and it was one of my first favorites. It was right when I was first starting to get into comics, and it came out, and I was just, to me, that one is, you asked earlier about subtlety. The storytelling in that graphic novel is so incredibly subtle. It's all about pacing and time and characters acting. It's characters. You're just watching characters talk with one another, and I can think of no other comic that influences me more when it's time to draw people sitting down and talking than that book.
Right.
And I think that maybe Dave McKean's background as a musician himself probably plays into that a little bit, because the way that people speak, I can hear them in my head talking. The rhythm of their speech is so perfect. It's very clear that all of those people sitting there talking were drawn from photographs, because I don't think you can think up that subtlety of expression that is in that book. But really, his use of black and white is very similar to the stuff that I am talking about from before.
Oh yes.
It's a very graphic approach. I don't think it's that different. It's just a more modern representation of the same thing.
Right.
And again, it's a black and white book. It's not a color comic. Yes, there's the blue in it, but it's really just used as value. It could have been any color. It could have been gray, and it would have worked just as well.
So you see a real sort of continuity between
to me, there's a complete through line.
I don't know if you know this, but Dave McKean is actually he's created the image for this year's Lakes Festival. He's
interesting. Great.
Yeah.
Is he going to be there?
Yes, he is going to be there. Yeah.
Now I'm disappointed that I can't come because of stupid COVID. Because stupid people won't wear masks. Wear a mask. Get vaccinated. I am a huge fan. I've always been a huge fan. I think he can do anything he puts his mind to with art. And I actually went up and got a sketch from him at a San Diego convention many years ago. I think while he was working on Cages, and it was just when I was starting. It was so rude of me because he was standing and talking to someone when I went up and asked him to do it. And I shouldn't have done so. But I'm a huge Dave McKean fan, but Cages is a lot of it. I find the storytelling in Cages to just be so out of this world.
Yeah. Okay, well, you've got Cages. So you've got an amazing collection of comics there. It's going to really take you back to your childhood. So it'll keep you young while you're on your desert island.
Yes.
Or rather, it's going to take you back to before your childhood in most cases, I should say.
Oh, yeah. No, most of the music and art that I like is older than I am.
Right. But we don't leave you there, because you've still got to choose a type of biscuit or cookie, as you Americans call it, to take with you. So what are you going to go for, and why?
Do you guys have chocolate chip biscuits?
Do we have? Yes, we even have Maryland biscuits.
I've never heard anybody refer to chocolate chip biscuits.
No. We call them chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, no. Oh man, you put any package of any kind of chocolate chip cookie in front of me, and I'll eat until the package is empty, and we'll regret it later. But I give me a glass of milk. Now I gotta say, I'm gonna have to find. Hopefully, my desert island is gonna have cows on it, because I do have to have a nice glass of milk with my chocolate chip cookies.
Well, it may have camels, not cows, but you can drink camel milk.
Okay, well that'll work. It'll have to. Okay. It will have to.
Okay, so you got your chocolate chip cookies, and then finally, now, I don't know if in America they have the same vast range of crisps, chips, flavors.
Oh my God! Well, I don't know. I mean, we've got a pretty good range. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to an American grocery store, but it's ridiculous the variety we have of everything. Like, yeah.
So what's the crisp?
Well, sour cream and cheddar baked Lays, but there has to be the baked ones. I don't like the real greasy ones. I'm really into the baked ruffly ones, but it's any
Sorry,
kind
what
of
is Lay?
cheesy,
Is that Lay? Is that a brand? Is that
yeah, that's the brand. That's the
okay,
brand.
right.
Yeah, any kind of cheesy, crunchy, salty thing I really like Cheetos, I'm embarrassed to admit, or any kind of little cheesy, salty cracker. I love that kind of stuff, but those sour cream and cheddar baked Lays have got it down to a fine science.
Yeah.
They've distilled it to its purest form.
Okay, so we're gonna pile you up with a couple of boxes of those.
All right.
You've got your reading matter, and I think you're going to be very happy on your desert island.
Now you also asked me a luxury item, and I totally cheated on that.
Go on.
My luxury item is a yacht.
Well, now the whole thing is pointless now.
I'm the most comfortable desert island person you've met. Yeah, but you didn't specify. You did not give me any limitations, so I chose a yacht.
Is that so that you can get off the desert island, or that just so you can cruise around the coast a bit?
You know, I didn't say anything about petrol, so I guess I'm cruising around the coast, or at least sleeping in the yacht.
Okay. Well, I have no problem with that at all. I mean, you can listen. You're not paying, mate. You can have a super yacht, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah. No, so, this is we're on Fantasyland. This is like, yeah, and it's probably got like a helicopter, a helipad, and maybe like a little launch bay in the back. Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's going to be like the Star Destroyer of yachts.
There you go. All right, you got it. So thank you very, very much for your time, Michael. It was absolutely fascinating hearing about your stories and your choices. And I have to say, what I really appreciated this time was it was almost a kind of history lesson as well about an area of comics with which I think lots of people are, certainly I, am not really that familiar. So it was really, really interesting.
That's my thing. I any kind of mid-century history, I love. Mid-20th century history, I love. And if you get me on a specific topic on it, I'll try to learn everything I can about it. And I'm certainly no expert in comics history, but I guess I know a little bit about the things I know about.
Lovely. All right. Well, with that, we say thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.